it's Rachel here. I just want to talk a little bit about the new letter to the body of elders that came out on the 1st of September from the Australasia branch, so to all the elders in Australia. And the letter is to replace the one that was issued last year. I think it was August 2016. So this letter replaces that letter to the body of elders with regards to the child safeguarding policies. So a few things stand out to me from this letter. One of them is that here on the first page in point 3, it says that from the Bible's standpoint, child sexual abuse is a gross sin. So they don't say it's a sin and a crime. They just say here from the Bible's standpoint, it's a gross sin. When you turn over the page to the subheading legal considerations, there it says that child abuse is a crime. But for some reason they don't say that it's a crime from the Bible standpoint. Do Jehovah's Witnesses not believe that crime exists? You wonder. They still say that the superior authorities stand in their relative positions, placed by God, the superior authorities being the governments, and that they are there to punish wrongdoers. So that's biblical, that's scriptural. So I don't know why they don't state here that it's a crime. Anyway, that aside, this point 3 on the first page, it goes on to say that the victim, her parents or anyone else who reports such an allegation to the elders should be clearly informed that they have the right to report the matter to the secular authorities. Elders do not criticise anyone who chooses to make such a report. Okay, so yeah, so that sounds a bit more proactive than in the Shepherd the Flock of God book. It said, if anyone asks, then let them know that it is their right to report to the authorities. But this is actually saying that the elders should clearly inform them that they have the right to report to them, to the secular authorities. Along in line with that, this letter actually gives some what do they call it? They want the elders to make notations in their Shepherd the Flock of God book, and one of them is to actually cross out the paragraph that said if asked. That said, if you are asked, make it clear that whether to report the matter to the authorities or not is a personal decision, etc. So that entire paragraph is to be crossed out of the Shepherd the Flock of God book in Australia anyway. One thing I find a little bit disturbing about that is that I think it's that paragraph in the Shepherd the Flock of God book. I think that's the only place where it says that child abuse is a crime. So now, in Australia, elders will not have that in the Shepherd the Flock of God book, that it's a crime. I don't know why they couldn't just cross out the if you are asked. Yeah, that's all they needed to do, really. Cross out those 4 words. But no, they've also crossed out the words child abuse is a crime. So I don't know if that was an oversight on their part, but it's not a good one. There were some other notations they were supposed to make too, but that's the most notable one. Now, so basically, the only improvement we've really seen as far as instructions that are given to elders via letters like this and from the service desk is that they are now to inform victims and their guardians that they have the right to report to the authorities. So this is a little bit different from what Brother Geoffrey Jackson stated at the Royal Commission in 2015. There was a point in the hearing where Peter McLellan was asking Geoffrey Jackson what protective measures did they put in place for children when the wrongdoing wasn't scripturally proven. So if the elders actually believed the victim, yet there wasn't another witness, and there was no confession, yet they still believed that the guy or gal was guilty of sexually abusing a child, what would they do to protect the child? And Geoffrey Jackson sort of stuttered and stammered through this, and basically he said that if there was a situation like that, then the brothers would have provisions, they would put into place measures that would protect the child. And Justice Peter McLellan actually pressed him for more information. And really all it turned out to be was that Geoffrey Jackson basically said that the elders would have to basically strong-arm the victim and or guardians to report to the authorities, because it was something that might not just affect them or that one child, but that other children might be at risk, and they needed to see the need to report to the authorities so that something could be done. So Justice Peter McLellan wasn't very happy with that response. I've actually got the transcript here from that portion of the hearing, and I will actually play it for you after I finish talking. Towards the end of the discussion on this subject, Geoffrey Jackson did say that there is a process, and I think at the moment we are in the process of adjusting some of our policies. So that's why it is a good time for this Royal Commission. But definitely it becomes obvious that we need to inform some. We need to put restrictions on that person, etc., etc. So he's actually talking here about an individual who hasn't been scripturally proven or found guilty, but the elders still believe he might be a risk to children. So we see no instructions really to elders in any of the information or documents available to them about this. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, I'm a little bit dithery, but you can see that really what Geoffrey Jackson said, and that they would look into things more. It hasn't been done. Like, there's a point here where Justice McLellan asked Geoffrey Jackson if the victim didn't want to go to the police, and their parents, guardians didn't want to go to the police, and the elders believed the allegation. Geoffrey Jackson said that he would hope then that the elders would follow their conscience, which would move them to go to the authorities. And so Peter McLellan asked him, is there any instruction to that effect? You know, that elders should follow their conscience and report to the authorities. And this is what Geoffrey Jackson said. You know, Your Honour, this is not my field. I can't tell you all the sections where we've said that, but that is my understanding. But if that instruction isn't given, that's perhaps something that we need to look at. So that instruction still hasn't been given to elders to follow their conscience. All they've been told is to clearly inform the victim and the guardians that they have their right, it's an absolute right they have to to go to the authorities and that they won't be criticised for that. So it falls far short of what Geoffrey Jackson suggested should happen. So anyway, I will just play, sorry, it'll just be the sound only.
I want to ask you a question about a different matter.
Yes.
Mr. Stewart raised with you the difficulty of your adherence to the biblical references that require two witnesses before an allegation can be accepted. Do you understand?
I do understand that.
Now, we had evidence, and indeed this will, I'm sure, be your experience, that you hear from a person who alleges that something wrong has happened, and you yourself are entirely convinced of what they're saying to you and are satisfied that it's correct. You understand?
I do understand.
And you could be in that position when there is no other witness to the event.
That is correct.
Now, what does the church do in the circumstance where the allegation may be against a father or someone who otherwise has close contact with a family, but there is only the allegation of the child, perhaps a girl, teenage girl, so the allegation can't be established? What does the church do about helping that child and or that family?
That's a very good question. First of all, the elders should let the responsible adult or the victim, if possible, know that they have a right to take this to the criminal authorities, the judicial system. But that's just a matter of notifying them of that. But because we are concerned about the actual physical welfare of someone in a situation like that, we would make sure that there are provisions made that, of course, if it's in the family, we can't take the child out of the family physically, but at least make sure that things are put into place so that this person gets the best possible care and protection.
Well, what do we put in place?
Or allow say it's the guardian of this victim, what they need to do. And of course, if it goes to the police, then it goes right into that whole government type arrangement whereby the government has authority to perhaps come in and separate families and so on.
But Mr. Jackson, if these people don't want to go to the police because that involves potentially a public process, trial and so on, it's very common that people don't want to go to the police. But in the assumptions that I've put to you, the young person has acknowledged the church's obligation imposed upon them to report the misbehaviour to the church. You understand? And then they find that the church won't determine the allegation to be true and act accordingly because there's only one witness, that is the young person. What does the church do to help that person or that family in those circumstances?
Well, as I mentioned, first of all, we would let them know that they should go to the police and try and, because this is beyond the process.
Mr. Jackson, we covered that. This is a person, and there are many of them who don't want to go to the police, but they've come to your organisation because they're required to report misbehaviour. And underlying my proposition is, of course, that they would expect your organisation to help them.
Yes.
Well, what do you do?
And the help that is, well, can I just mention, first of all, Your Honour, our organisation, people come to our Christian meetings twice a week, and they go to the preaching work. But what happens in the home is beyond the actual jurisdiction of the elders to tell the parents how they should organise these things with their children. And the point that I'd just like to make is, you see, then everyone is put on alert. Once the accusation is made, now we're aware. Could it be that the father, in an improper situation, another time is seen by the mother, and then she brings this forward? Then we have two witnesses.
Yeah, but I'm putting to you the proposition that you have one witness who you absolutely believe.
Yes.
What do you do?
Well, for the ultimate protection of that child, I could, if they feel that child and other children are in danger, I would hope that the conscience of the elders would notify the police if the parent is not willing to do that.
So you would hope that the elders would act in that way. Is there any
Yes.
Is there any instruction that they are to act in that way?
You know, Your Honour, this is not my field. I can't tell you all the sections where we've said that. That is my understanding. But if that instruction isn't given, that's perhaps something that we need to look at.
And if the girl says, no, I don't want the matter to go to the police, I don't want the prospect of a criminal trial, but please can the church help me, what do you do?
So then scriptural help would be given, but can't go in and take a child away from parents.
What do you mean by
So
scriptural?
spiritual.
What's the scriptural?
Scriptural help.
What would that be?
So, well, perhaps one of the scriptural things that we could show is, the God's Love book that was referred to in this commission. I don't think you have the last couple of pages of that book for me to refer to, but there's a footnote there that talks about legal and judicial, secular action with regard to other witnesses. And there's a very clear footnote that says that if someone does something like rape or a serious crime, this is definitely that should not stop a witness from reporting it to the authorities. So we would try to spiritually help them to become aware of their rights and the need, because maybe it's their decision, but if this affects other children, neighbours, and so on, surely they need to think a little beyond just the one person. Then the scriptural help that we would give is similar to other situations where people have experienced horrific tragedies in their lives, and their hope and trust in the Bible will give them some comfort. We found that 9/11, when the Twin Towers went down, Jehovah's Witnesses were invited actually to go in and help persons by sharing scriptures with them.
Now, if the circumstance is that the young person alleges they were abused by a member of the congregation, but not a member of their own family, and again, you as the elder are totally persuaded that the person is telling the truth, what do you do then? The assumption behind it, of course, is that the alleged abuser is a risk to others. What do you do?
That's correct, yes. So there is a process, and I think at the moment we are in the process of adjusting some of our policies, so that's why it is a good time for this Royal Commission. But definitely it becomes obvious that we need to inform some, we need to put restrictions on that person as to any type of association with minors. And if a person is genuinely innocent, they're not doing this, they should not mind the fact that they can clear their name by not being involved at all with dealing with children. Your Honour, could I just mention, as a reminder, you see, Jehovah's Witnesses, because we respect the family unit, we don't have separate Sunday schools, we don't run youth camps separately, so we believe that things should be done within the family, but the spiritual help that we can give and trying to protect, avoiding contact with someone who's accused with minors is a little easier for us because we don't have those youth group separate type arrangements.
Does anyone else have any questions? Ms. David.
Sorry for that extremely low tech. Yes, okay. So you get the idea. I hope you could follow along reading in the transcript and that my hand wasn't shaking too much. But you can see the adjustments and the instructions and the policy fall far short of what Geoffrey Jackson alluded to. Sorry, my brain's not working. The things that he said that could be looked into or adjusted, that they haven't happened. Anyway, if you want to see a little bit more about this, I did make a video at the end of last year. I think it was are Jehovah's Witnesses allowed to follow their conscience, and it was part 4, where I discuss a little bit more about Geoffrey Jackson's testimony at the Australian Royal Commission. And I talked a little bit, about whether the elders really, truly are able to follow their conscience and report to the authorities, perhaps when a victim won't report. And if this is actually endorsed by the organisation, as Geoffrey Jackson seems to suggest it is, then why is it that the elders who do this do so anonymously? Good question. Yeah. Anyway, I will leave it there. Bye for now.